What's going on, my friends? It's been a minute since I've been on, and I do hope that you are well. Well, it's that time of the year where it's time to sit down and set your goals for the next year. Yes, I know what you're thinking, Chris. It's only October, it's a little early, but not really. You really do need to focus on these things, and I think it's the one thing that's helped me in a lot of things that I've done in my life. I kind of fought this early in life of setting goals. What good is that going to do for you? And doing all this stuff. Like I remember I had an employer. I was a field technician for copier systems, and I worked on network systems and copiers for Toshiba, for a company not here in where I live, but in the Memphis, Tennessee area where I lived for many years. And they would sit us down and say, you need your personal mission statement. You need to set your goals for the year, what you're going to do. And I'm thinking, just getting in the van and I'm just hitting the road and going where you tell me to go. What is that going to do for me when setting goals? But I think deep down what they were trying to tell us is that you need to do this in life. It's set goals for your life, for your future, because you may not always want to do this, but there's something in your life you want to achieve. And I think they were deep down trying to teach everybody that. And where that really helped me and where I learned on that was when I had my own business, a retail business, and I was third generation owner of this from a business that's still in business. I sold it back in 2017. So it was a flower shop here in the Charleston area. My grandmother had started in 1956. And just because I was third generation owner doesn't mean it was turnkey and everything was given to me. I had to work because I had to rebuild that business out of when I entered it back in 2003. It was really not well. And it was almost like having to get a new business off the ground. It took a while. But a lot of what set in on it and really the lights came on, the bells came on was all of these goals and a lot of the stuff that I learned from that company about customer service really rolled off into that business that I did. And I say this, that it applies to if you're even working for yourself in the music business. Excuse me, I didn't mean to bump the camera. Personally, you don't have to have 7 employees and 2 vans running the road in a retail business. This is you working for yourself in the music business. Setting goals, it doesn't have to be that entailed. Setting goals, what it does is it just helps you focus mentally on looking ahead, and it keeps you, motivated. It really does. And it's something that has helped me. I'll set my goals for the next year, and then what I'll do is as I'm going through the year, I'll look at my progress of where I'm at, and I may adjust them. And it's okay. It's good to adjust and move things around. It's good to say, okay, I know I allotted this many cues for this publisher, but let's shift some to this publisher. You may, within the year, have signed on with a new publisher, and all of a sudden you're starting to see that they're getting you placements. A few quarters later and late in the year, you may say, "Oh, I'm starting to get placements. This is good. Let's get these guys more content." And the key here is that you want to do the most of your volume to the publishers that are getting you the work. But don't ignore your other publishers if they're getting you some placements, because you don't know where getting volume with those guys helps to where that's going to grow as well. And it's an exponential growth, my friends. Exponential. So setting goals and trying to do a lot of this and trying to plan your year is key. Now, you may be at a point where you're with 1 or 2 publishers and it's not that much to plan, but you still want to set goals, because one, your first goal should be is how many tracks do I want to do this year? And your second goal should be is let's see if we can add a new publisher or maybe 2 new publishers a year, if we can, to get music to. And then as you go along, you start realizing who's doing the work for you and what music is getting placed with what publishers. That's where you need to focus the most of your year on. And there's been a lot of talk lately about where quantity comes up and quantity comes to play here. But that factor of quantity is doing the most of what you're the best at. and getting it to those publishers. You can get that quantity, but do not let it discourage you or, let me see here. Don't let quantity get in the way of quality, basically. Don't let it hurt you from getting the quality of your music, because if all you're doing is focusing on quantity, especially from the start of this, if you're new to this thing, quality isn't going to get any better because you're worried about, I got to do this many tracks. I got to do this many tracks. You're going to get there eventually. Don't worry about it. And this all reverts back to the whole 52 cues a year. That's a good starting point. It's the book Dan Graham. In his book, he talked about this. Dave Croft talks about it a lot. It really starts at exponential form. 52 cues is 1 cue a week. And I look at it like this. If you got one cue a week and your quality is there, and then you start doing 2 cues a week, there's 104 tracks a year. See how quickly that can be? That can build your volume. 3 tracks a week. You get where I'm going with this. If you do 4 tracks a week, you're at 208 cues a year. In 5 years, you got 1,000 tracks. But you got to focus on quality. So don't get so hung up on quantity until you get your quality, and then you know where you've got your rhythm. You're going to build a rhythm. It's kind of like where I'm at with tension tracks. I could do a cue a day. I've been doing it. I mean, tension is something I never thought in a million years I'd ever do. I didn't think I would ever do that genre of music. And you're going to find a genre of music that you love doing, and I'm a rock player, and it's not your main genre, but you love it. And it's always what you don't expect that's going to happen. You get good at that. And then you start seeing that libraries are taking it, you're getting placements, and the growth is happening. It can happen with any genre, not just tension music. Don't get hung up on, I'm saying tension, it has to be it. But you may have a genre that you love. And it also reverts back to not trying to conquer every genre. It's good to know a few genres and get good at them, but focus on the one you're best at. But set those goals each year, my friends. Set them. Some of my goals would be, how many tracks do I want to do this year? I know it may have been in a jokingly manner, but I was like, I could do maybe 400 cues this year. That would be great, And I was doing some math in my head, but no, that's not achievable this year. I think I'll finish the year around 250 tracks, something like that, and that's fine. That's more than enough. Even if I finished at 200, it'd be fine. So that's just it. I've got to think about, I have my life in music, and then, other things that I get busy with throughout the year that can eat my time up. I've had some projects this year that kind of slowed me down, and some things that I needed to take a brain break. I mean, and that's another thing, as a side note, that's very important. When you set these goals, you have to be realistic about what you're doing. Take a brain break if you need to. If you feel it like, oh man, I just feel like I'm getting dragged out or burned out, stop for a few days and just take a break. Just take a break. It's okay. It's okay to take, it's good to take a day or week off maybe and do that. Don't not. And some of you may have families, you may have other commitments, and that's okay. You just have to budget your time. But don't burn yourself out to a point where you get so discouraged and it burns you out and then you hate it and you don't know why. If you love music enough, you'll never hate it. But the thing is you don't want to sit there and not understand why you don't want to do it, because you just can't bring yourself to get to the computer and hit the keys and go, I just can't do this. I don't know why. If you're burning yourself out, you're going to get that feeling. You just have to take a break. And a lot of times I'll take a break for a day or so and then start listening to music, or I'll switch to a different genre of music. Some of those things I've talked about before will help you stay focused and stay motivated. There are some people that say, well, there's no such thing as writer's block. And some people that say there are. I kind of agree and I disagree with that. I mean, there might not be any such thing as writer's block, but there's a mental block there of trying to focus on, what's the next thing that you want to do. When you're writing production music, it's a different beast than just writing traditional songs and stuff for the mainstream. you probably could get writer's block, writing lyrics and songs, hit songs for the mainstream. But when you're doing production music, I think it's more like a formula there. And you have to kind of be more open-minded and more, I think more free-spirited or more, I don't know, more spontaneous with the way you write. In other words, when I write a chord progression or a melody, I'm very cognitive of not repeating a melody, but I don't remember some things I did prior, and I'm not concentrating on that to where I'm just kind of doing it at my own rhythm to where I'm creating my own melodies. I'm not worried about whether I'm going to copy another melody because, one, you can't reinvent the wheel, but two, if you're doing it in your own intonation, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to plagiarize yourself or somebody else. Accidents happen, things you don't know, but it's rare. It's something you don't need to worry about. So my point is when you're writing with production music, be more spontaneous, more open-minded, and just start writing chords and start doing melodies and start doing things. Start bringing your elements together. I think the core of production music to help you get further in that process is finding your sounds and bringing everything together. What kind of percussion do you want to use? It all depends on the genre of music that you do. Tension, it seems not to be so hard as if I'm doing rock or if I'm doing something else. But there again, a lot of it, if I'm doing rock or any acoustic type stuff, it's just me picking up guitar and starting with a chord progression and figuring out what I want to do. And all that reverts back to know what you want to do before you start writing. Have a focus in mind. In other words, know what genre you're going to do, know what your target is going to be. Like, for instance, okay, it's indie folk, or if it's corporate music, or if it's just rock music for sports, you already know your focus, you know your target, you know where it's going. So if you're writing for a certain publisher and you know what they expect, you've got the majority of your plan and the majority of your obstacles out of the way, because you already know what they expect. You know the structure and what you're going to write, your elements, you know what genre you're going to do. You know, getting into a habit of doing all this stuff is going to make you faster as a writer, but it's going to help you build your quality and know by getting production better. Then that's going to get your quantity up. So when you set goals, just set them based on where you know where you are as a composer. And don't be in a hurry. It's going to get there. Don't worry about this. Don't think that I don't still struggle with it. Like, gosh, I want to finish the year at this. I have to stop myself and go, I get it. I want to finish the year at so many amount of tracks, but I also have to focus on what I'm doing now. I have to focus on getting the best quality music that I can of that album that I'm doing for that publisher. And when you worry about the end of the year, what you have to end at, it can really discourage you, and it can actually, it can distract you, my apologies, it can distract you from getting the immediate goal that you need done. It can distract you from getting that album done at the best quality possible because you're just worried about the end of the year, what you need to end at. Like, I need to get these tracks done by the end of this week, and I need to do this. Just get the music done at hand. Relax, get it done, and focus on one project at a time. That's a frustration I've always had. And I tend to get myself hung up on certain things, and I need to just stop, slow myself down, and focus on that project at hand. That's the best thing to do. And it will get there. At the Production Music Conference, I was at a panel, and a guy at one of the speakers at that panel, he is with a really big library. I can't remember which one it was, and it may have been Megatrax or somebody, but he was one of their in-house composers, and he said, I just plan my year, how many albums I'm going to do a year. And I don't remember whether he said there were 10 or 15 track albums. I would assume he said there were 15 track albums. But based on 15 track albums, he says, I'll map out the beginning of my year of how many albums I'm going to do based on how many genres that I do. So I'll say, okay, I'll do this couple of albums of rock, or I may do a couple of albums of tension, or blah, blah, blah. But you get the point. I do that, and it ends up being about 15, 20 albums a year. and he just lists out what his projected goal for how many albums, and he just starts at one genre, and then if he figures, well, I want to shift into another genre, he'll go and do an album of another genre, take a break from that, and come back to it. But it's a targeted goal. Now, does that mean you're going to meet that goal 100%? No. I didn't meet 100% all my goals this year, but I met the majority of them. And it's pretty much going to be, just focusing on what you're doing at hand. I mean, as I said a minute ago, some of my goals entail as I said, how many tracks I want to do for the year, what I want to do for each publisher, what genres I want to do, and also focusing on, okay, do I want to or do I not want to sign with a new publisher this year? I always try to focus on signing at least with one new publisher a year. And I think I accomplished one this year. I know I did. But I'd like to do another, but I've got to finish out my year. So I'm going to put new publishers on my goal for 2023 and just finish my year. So that's where my goal, and I adjusted it. What do I do? Like last month, I sat down and wrote down, okay, here's where I'm at. What do I need to do to finish my year? Let's look at each publisher where I'm at and who I need to focus on the most. I've got 2 publishers right now I'm focusing on, and it's actually 3. 2 of the publishers are with one distributor and one is self-distributed. So you've got 2 or 3 publishers, but I'm going to work with 2 entities to finish my year. And really, honestly, it's only 60 tracks left for the year. At best, maybe 65. And that's, 9 weeks away for the end of the year if we're looking at that. At least 9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks. So it's achievable. I just have to focus and get it done. But that's where I know my goal is in fulfilling each publisher, as I said a minute ago. So with that in mind, there were a couple of goals I have to push to 2023. It happens in order to do that because of priorities. So if you go priorities, and this is based on these publishers that are getting you most of your placements. And I said 3 publishers, I think 4. 2 of them with one distributor, so it's 3 entities. So, but be it that it may, that's not the most important point I need to make. It's just prioritizing your goals to where you know where your placements are going to go in long term, getting the volume for those libraries that are doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to come a time, and it's happened for me, that you're going to be with a publisher and things may change and you want to shift gears because there's another one out there that's really hitting it. That you don't want to ignore that publisher. Like I said a minute ago, you want to keep getting the music, but you want to focus on the new publisher and get them volume and try to build them up as well, because there may be a genre of music that you're doing or a publisher that's really taking you in and hitting it hard with a lot of placements. It has a lot of great clients and they work hard, that you want to get them volume too. So eventually what it's going to be as a whole is there's only so many publishers you can write for in a year. And unfortunately, some of those publishers prior may have to go away because they never got your placements. They may have gotten you a few placements here and there. But the thing to do is at least get them 5 or 10 tracks a year, so you're at least feeding them something. There's music there, but your volume publishers over here are ones you really need to work for. That's key. And I'm not at that point where I'm throwing away publishers because I don't want to do that. Even though I do have a couple that really are just out there quiet. I don't really write a lot of music for them. I'll do one of them in particular. I did 10 tracks for this year is all I've done for a brief. So if that publisher sends briefs out, and they don't get you a lot of placements, but they get you a few, if you have time, work on that brief. If you can knock a few of them out, do it. It's better than nothing, while focusing on those publishers that are getting you that volume. That volume is key. So my point today, folks, is set goals, but organize and focus on the right goals that will work for you. Everybody's goals are different, but focus on the goals that work for you. Don't focus on someone else's goals. Don't focus and worry about what publisher somebody else is signed with. I've said this before. Whatever publisher someone else is signed with may not be a fit for you, but then again, it may be. I've got a few libraries I'm doing very well with that other composers have told me about, and it just happened to be that we were doing that same type of tension music or same type of rock music, and it seemed to work. And it just fell into place. So you don't know, but don't get hung up on that. Find the publishers that work for you. Indeed. So I'm going to jump off here. I'm running way too long. I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. I'm kind of the worst at this, so I don't know if I lost you anywhere or jumped around too much, but I'm just the kind of guy, I get on the camera and I just turn the camera on and start talking. Something comes to mind. And as things come to mind, I'll get on and talk about it more. And I appreciate you for watching. I hope that you're well. And I hope your 2023 is going to be great. And I hope that your 2022 is going to end well, very well. Be cool, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, bye.